This is the Canon 100mm f2.8 LIS macro lens. It's the most optically perfect lens I've ever owned in almost 40 years of photography. It sells for about $900 and given its optical quality, that's something of a bargain. There's a cheaper version. There's a non-L, non-IS version that sells for about $600. And I used to own one of these, but I must have been quite unlucky because it's a lens that people rave about and you very rarely see a bad word written. But I had terrible focusing problems with it. It was okay in macro mode, but when I used it just as a regular 100mm lens, I had terrible problems with soft images. In the end, this just got too much for me, so I sold it and I bought this one. And this one has been absolutely perfect. No focusing problems whatsoever. It's not too big or heavy. The length is 123mm. Maximum diameter is 78mm and the weight is 625 grams. The front filter diameter is 67mm. It comes with a lens hood, but there's no tripod ring included. And Canon tripod rings tend to be quite expensive, although you can find cheaper versions made by third parties. On the outside, there's a focus distance scale and 3 switches. And with my EOS M system, I normally have to change lens settings through the menu, but I much prefer to have switches on the outside of the lens because it's faster and more convenient. So you can turn the IS on or off, you can go from autofocus to manual focus, and there's also an autofocus distance setting. And this actually makes quite a lot of difference to the autofocus speed. If this is set wrong, it won't autofocus or it's very slow. So the minimum focusing distance is 0.3 of a metre. So you've got a setting for 0.3 to 0.5, or 0.5 to infinity, or full, which is 0.3 to infinity. But on that full setting, it can be quite slow. So you're better off going to one of the other settings. And once you get that right, you'll find that your autofocus speed is a lot quicker. It has a red ring around the barrel, which means it's an L lens, which means that higher quality materials went into the construction. There is some weather sealing, and at least one lens element is UD glass, ultra low dispersion, which gives it a higher optical quality. There's a 9-blade circular diaphragm, and the bokeh is quite attractive. We'll see that a bit later in the video. There are 15 lens elements in 12 groups, and the minimum aperture is f32. As I said earlier, the closest focusing distance is 30 centimeters, and the characteristics of a macro lens are that the lens has very high optical quality and a close focusing distance, so you can get right into your subject to increase the magnification. The maximum magnification is ×1, which means that the image on the sensor will be the same size as your subject. Now let's take a look at some sample images to see what this lens is capable of. The easiest way to reveal flaws in a lens is to take an image at the maximum aperture, in this case f2.8, and then take 100% crop in one of the corners, and what you'll normally see is a noticeable lack of sharpness and often some chromatic aberration, normally in the form of purple fringing. But not with this lens. This image is 100% crop in one of the corners and it's absolutely perfect. The sharpness is fine, no chromatic aberration, and if you do lens testing, this kind of thing is actually quite rare. The bokeh is very smooth and attractive, no bright points, no strange artifacts. In these 4 images, I've just focused on one cat at a time, and you should be able to see this for yourself. Image stabilization works well, but the amount of IS you get depends on the magnification you're using. If you're just using the lens as a regular 100mm lens, you get 4 stops of IS. If you're using it in macro mode at 0.5 magnification, that drops to 3 stops. And if you use it at 1x magnification, that drops to 2 stops. This image isn't macro, so therefore I'm getting 4 stops of IS, and hand holding at a 1/6 of a second, the result is pretty good. Here's the same image, hand holding at a 1/6 of a second with IS off, and you can see that this image is unusable. This lens, which was announced in 2009, was also the first lens to feature Canon's new hybrid IS system. And this system compensates for camera shake in 2 directions, angular and shift. It's supposed to be much better for macro lenses where your subject is very close to the lens. Having a lens of such high optical quality, you might think I use this lens all the time, but that's absolutely not the case. Since I bought it in 2009, I've hardly used it. It just sits in the dry cabinet most of the time. And the reason for that is what I can only describe as Swiss penknife syndrome. I used to believe that I needed lenses and accessories for absolutely every situation I might encounter. But it's like having a Swiss penknife that has blades for every eventuality. What you find is that you never use the special blade for removing Boy Scouts from a horse's hooves, because you never actually find a Boy Scout stuck in a horse's hoof. I live in Thailand, where there's no shortage of insects at all, and occasionally an interesting insect might arrive in the garden and I go and grab this lens. But I'm not a macro photographer and I don't actively go out searching for small subjects. Therefore, this lens gets very little use. And if I need just a regular 100mm lens, I've got other 100mm lenses. They may not be quite as sharp as this one, but they do the job that I need them to do. And despite using it so little, I'm loath to sell it because it's such a fantastic lens, and I know that if I sold it second hand, I will get very little money for it. Making this video has actually been quite a good thing for me because it's reminded me how good this lens is, and it's given me a bit of inspiration to go out and start using it again, which I really should do. So to summarise, if you're a genuine macro photographer, or if you just need a very, very sharp lens, you could do a lot worse than this one. And it's not actually that expensive. It's not cheap, but it's not outrageously expensive. You know, to be able to get a lens of this optical quality for under $1,000 is actually very good. As ever, I hope this has been useful. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And I do have plans to make more videos. So if you have found this useful, please like and consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching.